depending on who you ask. The result of the Ondo Governorship election means different things. How, why, and what did Governor Rotimi Akeredolu have to do to win? To analyze the election results is Babajide Ogunsanwo, Channels TV's data and information consultant. He's here with me, still scribbling away. Babajide, great to see you as always. So your thoughts, how do you summarize the election and the result?
It depends. We've heard the governor talk about his plans. We should also talk about what the people want. So the summary is we've got good news based on this result, and there's some bad news.
Or not so good news? Not
so good news, to put it in a political way. But let's first start with the good news. The good news is, based on this election, 292,000 votes. In other words, the governor scored 49%. He had 49% of the total accredited votes. That's a higher endorsement relative to 2016, when he had only 42% of the accredited votes. So the good news is, in the total, more families living in Ondo State trust the governor. 42% of total accredited votes in 2016, now 49% of the total accredited votes. So that's the good news. The not so good news, as you will put it, is that based on the facts from the National Bureau of Statistics, they say that in the Southwest, Ondo State is the state that has the highest unemployment and underemployment rate. The NBS says Ondo State has a 53% unemployment and underemployment rate. More than 1 million people living in Ondo are either unemployed and underemployed. That's the highest unemployment and underemployment rate in the Southwest. And so, yes, we've seen the results. Shows that compared to 2016, more families have endorsed the governor. The governor tonight has talked about his plans and vision for Ondo Port. Yes, that is good, but the people in Ondo are also speaking. There's a need for the government to create that environment, policies, programs, and to rethink how small, medium, and large-sized businesses can employ people. So that is the summary of the results we've seen tonight.
And I'm guessing that you do have some comparisons to make from the 2016 elections and now possibly the number of people who turned out to vote and so on.
Oh, yes. The first is we're most likely not going to be having any governorship election until next year, about November next year, when Anambra comes in. So perhaps this will be the last governorship election that we will have before the APC has its national Congress. So this election has also reminded us that some friends have become enemies, and Amarachi, some enemies have become friends. But let's take a close look at exactly what did the governor do to win. In 2016, when this election held, the governor won all 3 senatorial districts. This time he lost Ondo Central Senatorial District, and he won Ondo North and Ondo South. So let's look at Ondo Central, where he lost, even though he had some positives. The positive is, in Idore, for instance, in 2016, he had 42% of the total accredited votes. This time, he was able to perform a bit better, 44% of total accredited votes. In 2016, in Ondo East, he had 27% of accredited votes. This time, 43% of accredited votes. Let's look at those other 2 regions, Ondo North and Ondo South. He won this time in Ondo South, Ondo North with a big margin. Look at Owo. 2016. 77% of accredited votes went to the governor. This time, 81% of accredited votes the governor was able to get in Owo. Akoko Southeast, in 2016, he had 45% of the accredited votes. In this election, based on INEC results, that has improved to 59% of accredited votes. And finally, Ondo South, 2 places stand out. Ilaje, in 2016, Amarachi, the governor scored only 18%, you heard me right, 18% of accredited votes. This time, it has moved to 60% of accredited votes. And so if those numbers from INEC are accurate, we've seen more families endorsing him in Ilaje. Also in Akeredolu, 42% in 2016 of accredited votes. Governor Rotimi Akeredolu this time has scored 55% of accredited votes. So in the summary is still that in this election, the governor was able to gather 49% of accredited votes, and that was an improvement from 2016, where he only got 42% of the accredited votes.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of something that you said, which is that Ondo State has the highest number of unemployment, the highest unemployment rate, in the country. Was this before the governor or after, he became governor?
And this is a report that was released less than 100 days ago by the National Bureau of Statistics that showed every state on their performance of unemployment. But this doesn't mean that jobs have not been created in Ondo.
Right.
Jobs have been created, but the rate of citizens living in Ondo coming into the labor force is significantly faster than the rate of jobs that have been created. And so Ondo State, more than ever before, needs to rethink its job creation program. But what we've also noticed in this election is some consistency with what has happened in the previous 2 elections post the presidential election. Let's look at the voter turnout.
Yeah, because there were more people out this year, right?
Now,
in some places.
In some places, but if we take a look at the trend, especially Kogi, we've seen the elections in Edo, what you notice is a lot of Nigerians are still not coming out. This time in Edo, 33% of those that were registered came out. In 2016, now that was low. Only 33% of those that were registered came out. In 2016, those numbers were better. We see in Kogi State, we've seen that Kogi State election, only 39% of people that were registered came out to vote. In Bayelsa, that number was relatively surprising. 56% of those that were accredited came out to vote. In Edo, the election before this, only a quarter, 25% of those that were registered came out to vote. And in this election, we've seen only 33% of those that were registered coming out to vote. In all, we've had 4 elections post the presidential election. 6.6 million people have registered in these 4 states, but only 2.3 million have been accredited. So the evidence shows that only 34% of Nigerians are still turning out to vote. And so INEC needs to understand all the processes to ensure that more Nigerians get to vote. But in the final analysis...
And very quickly, too.
Let's not forget that no man is above the law, and no man is also below the law. Theodore Roosevelt.
That's a fine place to leave it, Babajide. Always a pleasure having you here. Thanks for dropping by every Sunday. Appreciate you.